basically what we're looking at today is a few of the drainage processes, and some of these I think we've touched upon earlier in terms of the various projects that we've seen and how these are part of the entire system that have been designed in particular projects. So we look at the concept behind it and how it actually works to implement it in different contexts. So so the phytoremediation system that we had introduced in, we had kind of seen it in one of the projects earlier. Essentially, what a phytoremediation system is basically is that your plants are allowing for all the cleaning or the cleaning of the system to happen through the soil and the various microorganisms. So basically, you're kind of letting, with your septic tank or soak pit, you're letting that whatever you're releasing from your site, the waste into the septic tank or the soak pit, and then that's being released within the soil bed. So essentially, your plants and the roots that are growing there are going to start to kind of clean these aspects, and then you are going to get a treated uh, part eventually. So basically, in your reed bed system, what happens is you're going to, after the sludge has settled, you're going to then release the rest of it in the bed, which is with the soil. And there are planted kind of trees and, other plants which are capable of growing there and use those to kind of enhance their own processes in the bargain. So this is
Swati,
a yeah, yeah,
you want me to step in?
yeah. If you would,
Okay.
yeah.
So, just to add to what Swati said, so what happens is in your phytoremediation, as she rightly mentioned, there are plants which are used to absorb all the sludge. So, what happens is whenever all your fecal matter, whether it's in the form of the black soil, which is the one that comes from your water closet, or it's a gray water that comes, it first empties itself into a septic tank. Now, septic tank is more like a settling tank. Okay, we will be showing you those diagrams and also giving you the sizes of the same. But what and then phytoremediation is about the reeds bed or the constructed wetland. Okay, it's called wetland because the water is constantly being induced, which is the waste water into that bed, and the roots of those trees are supposed to absorb. Okay, so those are those bulbous roots which actually absorbs or survive on the sludge, and that's how all the contamination is being taken care of from the wastewater. Okay, next slide. So here basically this is talking about what are the different kinds of chemicals or elements which are being absorbed by the roots. Some of it, you can actually, what do you say, absorb it from the roots itself or from the stems, so they can extract it from there. But phytoremediation is basically using plants to recycle the wastewater. Next, Swati.
Yeah.
So DWAT. Okay, now DWAT is something wherein the reeds bed is being used, which is nothing but your phytoremediation. Now DWAT is a decentralized wastewater management system, wherein you don't centralize it. Okay, you decentralize the whole system so that the efficacy or the efficiency is much more higher. Next. So in the DWAT system, so I think just move to the next slide.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So this is a crude way wherein you have the screening or the grit removal. Then you have a primary, no, the earlier one. Yeah. The primary settlement tank. Okay, then there is a biological treatment and then there is a final settlement. Now, if you understand the screening and the grit removal, this is mainly in terms of the wastewater, which is the grey water. The water that comes from your wash basins and your kitchen sink. Even the urinal water is not considered as grey water, it comes under black water. Okay, and the primary settlement tank is basically your septic tank where all your solid particles are going to settle down. The biological treatment is your reeds bed, and then there is a final settlement tank, which is basically your oxidation pond. Okay, or a kind of a pond wherein there is a certain kind of an odor which is associated with the waste water. Now, over the period of these screenings, the odor still remains, and the odor only goes off when the oxidation happens, wherein the oxygen gets mixed with the water, and then the odor is being taken care of. Next. Now, this is basically a settling tank. Now, settling tank is nothing but your septic tank. Now, these, depending on the kind of contamination and the level of contamination, you need to put these screening tanks. What it does is basically it has a baffle wall. When the solid particles hit the baffle wall, it settles down. And only the clearer water which is there on the top, which will have certain kind of floating elements, and there will be a certain kind of contamination that will overflow in the next compartment. The more compartments you add, the more clearer water that you will get. And you will get more sludge deposition at the bottom. So this is also known as a settler tank. It stabilizes the settled sludge by anaerobic digestion. Now, anaerobic digestion is something which is without oxygen. The bacteria itself digests the fecal matter and then it settles down. There is also gas which will be formed, and there is scum. Scum is nothing but a foamy element which settles on the top of the tank. Now, here, if you see, there is a removal of COD, BOD. Now, COD is chemical oxygen demand, and there is biological oxygen demand. Now, these components are very important in terms of waste recycling water. And then there is TSS, which is the total suspended solids. Now, guys, because you all are in the second year, it's going to be very tough for you all to understand all these elements right now. But just understand that every screening process, at the end of every screening process, there are certain standards which are prescribed, and those standards are being given by the government. It's basically the CPCB, which is the Pollution Control Board, Central Pollution Control Board, which gives you these standards, and you have to meet those standards. So the guys who have been maintaining the systems will have to take these readings, monitor it, and also submit it to the municipal corporation to ensure that whatever water that you're recycling meets certain standards. Okay, and it doesn't harm any human being or any lives. Next. So these are your horizontal baffle reactors, which are nothing but similarly, as you understand the science of it, it has these chambers. Now the narrow chambers also, see the amount of sludge that gets deposited at the bottom. The initial tanks are much more higher compared to the other tanks, which are lesser. Okay, and then there is an overflow of water. There will always be a vent pipe which is there so that the gases that accumulated at the top are being taken care of. So, in case you have a septic tank in your areas, you must have experienced if you play in and around the septic tank, there is a particular kind of odor that it lets out, especially when you are near the vent pipe. And then there is a lot of heat. Okay, you can actually feel that the slab of the septic tank is very heaty. Now, that is basically because of the anaerobic reaction. Okay, because of the digesting, the bacteria digest the fecal matter, there is a lot of heat that is also being produced, which gets accumulated at the top. Now, the sizing of the chambers is basically 80% of your OHD. Okay, so OHD का जितना पानी का capacity है, volume है, उसका 80% should be the tank size. Next. These are like similar. Now here, this is in another settling tank which has the filters in it. So the scum which gets on the top also gets traveled, okay, in the next settling tank. So the filter absorbs it and you get much more clearer water. So even the minute particles are taken care of in this. So if you understand, the COD and the BOD levels are now improved. Okay, and they are very important because that gives you the health of the water. Next. Now, this is basically the whole constructed wetland. Now, constructed wetland is nothing but your reeds bed, wherein you have trees, you have water, okay, and you have compartments in it as well with filters. So the water slowly trickles down. It's never like, gushing water that comes into your reed bed. Okay, but this is the same thing that is being given in one cyclic process. Next. The only thing with the reed beds that you need to keep in mind is in the humid climate, that if you don't maintain the reed beds, the possibility of insect manifestation is much more higher, which is not good. So that's why you have to be very, particular in terms of maintaining the reeds bed. So as per the climatic conditions, you won't use a particular plants. You will use certain plants which survive. Okay, so you have to go for native species as well. Next. Swati, it's not moved for me. Has it moved for y'all?
No.
Polishing
Okay, can you
pond
go
has
to the next one?
you back on.
Okay, yeah. I will explain the polishing point here. So now, if you
Yeah.
understand, you have
Okay, Maya.
underground anaerobic.
Hello.
Yep. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. Can you please go a bit slower? It is becoming very difficult to take down notes because you're
Okay.
talking
Sorry.
very fast.
Sorry. Okay. Okay. I'll keep that in mind. Sorry. So now the first thing is your underground anaerobic treatment. In your underground anaerobic treatment, what happens is as your settling tank is there, which is 80% of the capacity. Okay. Then comes your constructed wetlands, which is in purplish in color here. Okay, which is nothing but your reeds bed. So can you see that the overflow from your settling tank is actually overflowing into your reeds bed? ठीक है? Then the reeds bed will have these, baffle walls, and then the plantation is there, and that plantation absorbs the sludge. So by the time it comes into your collection tank, which is on the right hand side, okay, and then that overflows into an oxidation pond, which is your green. So I think Swati is moving the cursor along. Understood? So the CPCB standards in terms of your COD, BOD, whatever I was talking about, has to be met where the red line is, which is your settler tanks or anaerobic digester tanks. ठीक है? You want me to repeat this?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
Okay.
please.
Yeah. So what happens is the first rectangle that you see here in brown is your settling tank or an anaerobic settler tank. Okay, what we saw with a lot of baffle walls in between. Okay, at the end of it, you see a screening as well. On the right hand side, see there is a hatch there. Yes, where the cursor is. That is the last one. So you see all the tanks in one go here, which we saw in three parts in the earlier slides. Okay, so it's an underground thing. You don't see them. You only see those top manholes, which are accesses to maintain these things and remove the sludge out of it when it reaches its capacity. Okay, this is totally underground. It's only 450 mm above ground so that all the storm water or the surface runoff that happens in the monsoon doesn't get into these tanks and contaminate it. Clear? इधर तक समझा red line तक?
Yeah.
Okay, now the overflow from your underground tank, settling tank, comes into the reeds bed, which is a constructed wetland. That's the other name. Okay, and from there it goes to the oxidation pond. Swati, could you just take over? Hello, Swati, can you take
Yes.
over, please? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I have a question, please. Hello.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yes.
So, when you say that the underground anaerobic treatment bed, it has to be 80% of the OHT. So, is it just the septic tank or the entire thing, entire this brown box, what you have shown?
Entire brown box.
This tank. Yeah. The first one.
So, septic tank along with other anaerobic treatments. Okay.
This.
Yeah.
So this one is a settling tank with all your treatments. Yes.
Okay.
Settling tank with all your treatments.
Thank you.
The other sizing I shall just write in the chat box at the end of the class. Okay, just understand the system from Swati meanwhile. Swati, over to you.
So
Thank you.
yes. Yes. Um, so shall we proceed to the next one? Do you all have any other questions on this? The way the processes have happened here. So essentially, through the series of the various treatments that have happened, once your sludge has settled down, and the plants have kind of consumed the sludge, what you get is a series of like treatments that done are done for the water. So the water has gone through a filtration process, and you kind of end up getting a clean water, but with odor. And like as Kima explained, once it kind of meets with the oxygen, the odor will be taken care of as well. So essentially, you get treated water by the end of it in this open pond, and then you kind of also deal with the odor by the end of the process.
Does
So,
this pond need to be open? Sorry.
yeah, yeah, go
Sorry.
on.
Does this pond need to be opened, or is there a way to pass air through it while it's in a tank?
So actually, depending on what you're using it for, sometimes you can also pass it to a closed tank, but that tank will then carry the odor of the that the water is still carrying with it, you know. So because you're kind of putting it in a closed tank, that will have a vent pipe, etc., but it's not going to clean it in terms of the odor to that extent. So sometimes, you know, based on what your irrigation consultant would say, if you're using it for irrigation, sometimes you would put it in a solid RCC tank so that the water remains clean and it's not kind of mixing with any kind of soil particles or minerals from the ground. Okay, and then that water can be used for the larger irrigation system. But also these ponds, okay, can be lined with some kind of stone pitching, etc., so that that soil mixing, etc., is not happening. Okay, so it can be an open pond in that sense, so that your oxidation process happens, and then it can be taken for the various uses that you might need. Is that clear? Is that clear?
Yeah.
Would you like
And
me
so
to
if I'm
explain
flushing
that?
it, I need to keep it in an open pond, right? I can't just put it in a tank if I'm using it for
Yes,
flushing.
yes, yes. Because that then would carry very strong odor and it will be a problem within the structure.
Right, right.
Yeah,
I wanted to ask one thing. Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah. So the when the water is passed from the settling tank to the constructed wetland or the reed bed, does it contain any sludge or all of it is filtered in the tank?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yeah. So when the water is passed from the settling tank to the constructed wetland after going through the treatment, does it
Yes.
still contain any sludge or all of it is settled down in the tank?
It's all settled down here.
So it is just purifying the water then.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
So this is one of the projects in Auroville, which is called Vikas Community Layout. So I think for the entire community, there was this cleansing system. So basically, all the uh, discharge from the buildings here would then be let into one larger tank, and that could then be treated and used for various purposes post that. So based on what we saw in the diagrams, there is a series, there will be a solid kind of tank with manholes that exist, and this is the final open pond that you see basically. And these open ponds then have, you know, these planting also that is happening. Sorry, this is the larger open pond that's happening at the as the final tank, but these would be the anaerobic reaction tanks that you see before that. So essentially, you have the growth of native species happening. So it doesn't even look like a sewage treatment plant, and it can be used as a feature or a system at an overall level from a landscape perspective as well. Just a second. So I think so. This is a section which is kind of showing you the cascading or the constructed wetland system. So sometimes you can almost you're creating a wall at one edge, and you can also close it at the bottom in this sense, and then you will have your planting happening at the upper level. So this is another section of the constructed wetland from this project. So that's your harvesting pond, and this is the series of how they have kind of done the various filtration processes. So basically that's your main digester or the tank, the first one. Then it goes through the various series of filtration processes and comes down to the final pond where you get the clean treated water. And then from there, that's when the oxidation process starts. At this point, if you would like to, you will start kind of using this water for other purposes as well. um, I think what we'll do is we'll just stop here and try and take more questions so that we can discuss this, and then maybe Kimaya can step in to explain the biodigester when she's available. Yeah. So if you all have questions, we can take some of those at this point.
Yeah, I had a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, so after the water is purified from the constructed wetland, then how much is passed through the storage tank and how much percentage is absorbed by the plants or the soil?
Um. Okay. Okay. So you're asking me how much water do you collect by the end of it?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So basically, because this is a constructed wetland, this has a closed bottom also. Okay, so all this water is going to be held within this tank. It's not that you're losing any of this water. The uh, the plants are actually using any of the sludge or the nutrients that the water carries in terms of particles. Okay. So essentially, sometimes these are filled with wood chips and things like that also, so that it becomes a filtration process for the water to run through, in a sense that all the particles that, the smaller particles that may have been left off from here, that will then be kind of settling down here as well, and the plants are going to use it, and that entire water that you have will then get transferred into the pond. So you're not losing any water in the process in that sense.
Okay, so I'm just asking if the capacity of the septic tank is 80% of OHT, so that's
Hmm.
the exact amount that I get in, like that's the exact amount that I
Hmm.
get filtered
Hmm.
also.
Yeah, yeah. There
Okay,
might be like a slight loss,
slight
but
change.
that's a
Yeah.
minimal amount. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That depends on um, every filling that happens into the tank. There will be that slight amount of loss depending on what kind of water has come in. So that's a minimum amount that will happen.
Okay, thank you.
Also,
Yeah.
what kind of plants can we use for such a setup to ensure like the filtration is the most efficient, or this thing, like, is there any kind of parameters for the kinds of plants we can use, and then we have to adjust that for a local climate to see what survives, or
Yeah, so I think the plants will depend on what plants survive in this condition. Okay. So they are essentially supposed to be native. So I can't tell you at this point. So it will be different for different places as well. So like the one we were doing in Patna, the we have kind of really worked out. Anyway, the project has a native planting system, but particularly for the tank itself, what works with the kind of with the sludge and the soil that has been included here, and the wood chips, those are the plants that have been selected and used. So that's a careful selection that is done, even with the consultant who works with the system very closely. So they would also advise on what kind of plants would survive better in the system that they have provided or designed. Does that
and if
answer
I'm in an
the
urban fabric like Mumbai, yeah, and if I'm in an urban fabric like Mumbai, is there any chance that I won't find suitable plants because of the way the city is, because of pollution and other kinds of reasons,
No, no,
or
no.
will it be
I don't
more
think
complicated?
I don't think there should be that kind of a problem. I think in most cities also this has been adopted even for lake regeneration, etc. And essentially the plant is also in reference to what this immediate context is. The kind of soil that you're using here, and the sludge and the amount of sludge that's coming in. So that all those calculations also matter in terms of the selection. So it's not that Bombay, because if it's urban kind of nature, is not going to have any of those plants. That's possible still to find the right kind of species. I Shravan?
Yes, thank you, thank you.
Yeah. So I actually can show you one of the. You just give me a second. I can show you an image of a lot of these tanks that, I mean, they're at a larger scale. It'll give you a reference of how to kind of view the same thing. Just a minute. Just give me a second. So, Namya is asking, does the system change with the soil profile of the site you are working on as well? If the site has more rocky soil, maybe. Uh, I I don't think, no, it's not a problem because you can do this in various scenarios and settings. Okay, so we've done this also in very, very extreme situations where you have more rocky or sometimes more sandy soil. But because of this tank being a closed bottom tank, you know, the constructed wetland itself, it doesn't, so the soil that we fill there with reference to the various other fillings that happen in that, that would be taken into consideration with the kind of cleaning the water needs to go through. So I think that problem is not really faced, you know, because you're not dealing directly with the rocky end of the soil. If that answers your question, maybe we can also, maybe Kimaya, we can ask her to kind of just articulate this a little bit better to for it to reach you correctly.
Yeah, so actually, my site is located near a coastal area. So, like, it's near the coast. So, I was just asking whether that would actually affect the system in any way.
No, I think it can be adopted. I don't think it should be a problem.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if you're only treating grey water, you do not need the settling tank. We could directly pass it through the wetlands. Yeah, I think what you mean by grey water is from the showers, etc. Right? Because that is grey water, but the water from the urinals or the wastewater is also still considered black water. So the grey water, as Kimaya had also mentioned in one of the previous lectures, basically when they're carrying all your detergent and soaps, etc., you know, they're carrying a lot of chemicals. So that treatment needs to be done firstly. So you know, that kind of filtration process has to happen first, and then it can be let into the reed bed or the constructed wetland after that. But the chemicals cannot pass through that portion. So you'll need a different kind of a filtration process first, as opposed to the settling tank, and then it can go into the reed bed. Does that answer your question, Prakriti?
Yes. So, what can we use for that then? Because
I think you know. So there, I think there are newer methods as well now, where you just within your pipe system itself, there is a filtration process that can be attached. You know, so it's just a fitting within that can be adopted. So I think we can look at that and maybe share some of those with you. But there are possibilities of just including that within your pipe system before it goes into the next chamber, like before it goes into your gully trap or the next catch basin itself. So the cleaning process and the filtration process happens right there, just a fitting into your pipe system.
okay, okay, thank you.
How do we take care when the constructed wetland receives water, rainwater? Uh, so the so the way it's usually designed is it's keeping in mind how much incident rainfall is going to be there. Okay, so that is already considered while designing the tank. So that like Kimaya was saying, she put the size in for this you know, the rest of the tanks. Sometimes most of the times the tanks are already considering the little amount of water that they will be receiving, and if they have to hold that, and how does that overflow kind of happens. So they're always designed with that in mind. There's no problem of it receiving rainfall and holding it for some time. The system is designed to accept some of that. Does that answer your question, Aditya?
Yes, yes.
Do we put reeds bed in retention ponds too? What do you mean, Vaishnavi? You mean that once you have a retention pond, after that you'll put a reed bed. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, for the vegetation.
Not really, no. So the retention pond, in a sense, you're trying to percolate within the soil, right?
Not
Actually, after the retention pond, there's a trench pit which takes the water to the rainwater harvesting tank. So, will the retention pond need any of those layers?
I don't think so, because retention pond,
Yeah.
you're necessarily talking about the rainwater harvesting water, no? So it's not. Um, See, your reed bed, okay, in concept, you have to understand the reed bed is essentially filtering the water. Okay, so any um, particles, that is your solid waste particles that the water is carrying, that is being treated off, and the water is being treated for you to use it for, the landscape and any other kind of flushing purposes that you would have. But when it comes to your rainwater harvesting system, you're talking about water from runoffs and water from your roof, etc., which is essentially clean water. So it doesn't need to go through that kind of a treatment system of the reed bed, you know. So they are looking at two different contexts altogether.
All right. Okay.
Swati,
Yeah.
when we're talking about the open ponds again in a place like Mumbai or any kind of urban fabric, you said that I remember asking this once, and you said there are some filtration methods which kind of help you to prevent scum from forming and your mosquitoes from breeding and all of that. So
Yeah.
in if we implement those, would that kind of affect the uh, water in any way?
So I think you're talking about the last pond there. They're talking about the polishing pond. May if you have
Yeah,
any of
yeah.
those fish, etc., does that affect? No. So actually, it's a good thing to adopt that method in any case, because it's an open pond, right? So there will be some kind of moss growth and all those kind of things. The fish will actually make sure that that's kept out of the way. And by the time the water has reached this pond, it's essentially treated water. It doesn't carry any kind of effluent or anything like that. So in that sense, the ecosystem can thrive as well. So I don't think there is any problem. So I think it's a good idea to adopt that method here in the last pond.
And and if we're not going with fish because of like any kind of other reason, because let's say like there's predators around which may get to them, or something else, or because the water may not be permanent, uh, can we
Yeah,
use
so
something
even if
like a
when
mechanical
the
filter?
water, you'll have to figure what is the method of water not be permanent, water not being. You might have to at least, you might have to kind of move the fish away or things like that. Like you'll have to kind of figure some way of doing that, or you have to kind of manually fill this tank to ensure that the ecology is alive at all times. But you're saying that if I don't have fish, if I'm not going to have fish, then what is the other method of doing it, right?
Yeah, like pumping it or something else. Because I think you mentioned for semi-permanent pond, it's usually pumped, right?
Yeah, so when it's not going to have any rainfall and that water recedes eventually, then you will have to have some bowel connection for it to be manually filled, or your tanker comes and fills it, whatever that may be.
All
Or
right.
your overall tank system has enough of it to kind of pump into this, but that would be some kind of a system that needs to be worked out. But essentially, to keep it clean, the water needs to keep moving. Some kind of trickling also needs to happen to ensure that the mosquitoes are kept away, and the water system is um, well kept well kept, that kind of thing.
All right. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah. If we are making a percolation pit situated close to building foundations, do the holes start only below the foundation depth so that no percolations happen near the foundation, or does that not matter? Okay, Flo, so I think there are a couple of things here. So the percolation pit, no, the first thing is that up to what depth you go depends on the soil condition. At what point, until what point can you allow for the water to reach and recharge the groundwater? So it depends on the immediate site situation as well, and the soil condition. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing is you'll try and generally keep it a little bit away from the foundations, about 2.5 meters in any case to, I mean it in plan, sometimes to ensure that that it doesn't affect your foundation as such. But um, and I mean it from the structural point of view, but otherwise the water just recharging the groundwater doesn't have an immediate effect on the foundation, because the foundation is sealed and taken care of with various things that need to happen in the construction process in any case. So you will try and maintain a certain distance in plan to ensure that the two do not clash. But the depth doesn't depend on the foundation really. It depends on what point you need to reach to really recharge the aquifer or the groundwater in that sense. Does that answer your question, Paul?
Yeah, yeah. But thank you. But
Yeah.
what if we have like a very tight site and the foundations are like all around and we don't have much place for a pit like 2.5 meters away? Uh, is there any way of
So
like reusing the rainwater?
yeah, so I think in any case, if you keep the area porous, that itself is also its own way of recharging the groundwater. So it's just that that's a slower process. Your percolation pit, because of its depth and it's actually reaching the aquifer directly, it's going to kind of allow you to take that water in to that depth and then pass it on to the next through an overflow system. But when you're dealing with a smaller site, anyway, you could just release the water into the groundwater through general percolation and keeping your site porous, and that should help you in itself. But if you're talking about a certain very particular condition, then we might have to see it in plan to kind of advise in the correct manner. But I'm making it a bit more generic while answering it right now.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
If we want to use the treated water for health faucet and hand washing as well, what other treatment will it have to go through? Uh, it'll have to go through a water treatment plant, but I don't think this water can be used for direct purposes and like that. I don't think it can go to the health faucet, because usually the health faucet will always have clean potable water that is passed on. You cannot use. I don't think you can use this water, but you usually would send it through a water treatment plant in any case if you want to use it for
You will have to, yes, because in wash basin you'll always get domestic water, which is a potable water to wash your hands. You'll never get it something that comes from your flushing tank.
So this water cannot even go through a water treatment plant and then go to the hand
Yeah,
wash
water
area.
treatment plant, yes. Water treatment plant in terms of potable water. It has to meet the standards
Yeah,
of the potable
yeah,
water.
yeah,
Then it can be used.
yeah. Is there
Even
any other method for removing the odor other than the open pond?
Oxidation is the only process. Otherwise, then you'll have to go for chemical processes, activated carbon and things like that.
So with activated carbon, do we pass it through a bit of activated filter of activated carbon, or we have to mechanically add it?
Mechanically added. It's something that it's not manual thing. It's sorry, I was on mute. I didn't realize. It's a designed process. You can't use it manually.
Right. So I'll have to use
Yeah,
it
because
through like
activated
they'll
carbon is
essentially.
something that you can't use it with your hands or something like that.
Yeah. Right. Right. But so with the design process, as in, I'll have it up as a part of my channel, right? Like if I have it going from the uh, filtration systems to the tank, then between that I'll have my activated carbon filter somewhere in the middle, right?
Yes, yes.
All right. And how large would my filter have to be? Like, would it be similar to the pipe or much larger, like an entire tank of just activated carbon filtration?
No, it is. It depends on the sizing, right? Just come back. Come again. I didn't get your actually question properly.
No, so essentially for activated carbon, to use activated carbon to treat the oxidation, do we
Hmm.
have to pass it through like a filter that's like a filtration tank, or how do we kind of use activated carbon in that sense then?
It's an inbuilt system that you get. It's a ready-made system that you get. You can't build it unless there are very large capacities. But
Right,
even
right.
then, the
So
MEP
it
guys
is
will
a
help you
stock.
to do that. Yes.
So it's essentially just a stock system. As an architect, I just have to mark out its space in the plan.
Yep.
All right. And will such a system also help filter my grey water? Because uh, or would or I think a better question would be, if I'm using a filtration system for my grey water, would it already include the activated carbon that I need to filter this kind of
It will. It will.
so I can channel my effluent, my not my effluent, but the odor water from my reed bed and the grey water which I'm collecting and my rainwater to the same filter, and then take it to my flushing tank.
Yes, you can.
Oh, lovely, lovely.
Hima, actually, there was
Can
one question that I just want you to like. I have answered it, but I don't know if they've kind of got it clearly. Does the system change with the soil profile of the site you are working on as well? If the site has more rocky soil, maybe. If you could just respond to that.
Swati, I
Yeah.
couldn't hear you clearly.
Should I repeat my question?
Yes, yes, please.
Yeah,
Yes.
so this was the question which says that does the system change with the soil profile of the site you are working on as well? If the site has a more rocky soil, maybe. So I have answered this, and this is in reference to the D.Arch system, but
Hmm.
I'm not sure they've kind of entirely got uh, uh, what I said. Basically, I've seen that it
Actually, it
does.
is pretty independent.
Hmm.
When I say pretty independent, because you're not relying on the soil capacity here, right?
Hmm.
Whatever is the wastewater, you're recycling it, and then you're utilizing it within the system itself. So there is no kind of a what I something that is dependent on the soil, that you're using the soil from the thing. It's not
Yeah.
like the rainwater harvesting, right? Rainwater harvesting, you are relying on the soil kinds and the topography and everything. But waste recycling is quite an independent system altogether on its own.
Yeah, so I actually said that because our tanks are also closed bottom, we are not dealing with the soil at all
Yes,
directly.
exactly.
So,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
yes, true.
Okay. Um, is there any other method that's done? Yeah. So I think we've covered all the questions now. Guys, any other questions? Kimera,
yeah.
should we take
So
up later? Okay,
let's.
there's another question.
Yeah. So can the rainwater harvested that water can be used for health faucet and like shower treatment?
Yeah, once it meets the CPCB standards, it can be used.
So for that, a basic water treatment will be fine.
No, not
Since
basic
okay,
water treatment, because sometimes you do have acid rains as well. So you will have to consider that part as well.
and the activated carbon can that be used
Yeah,
for
that can be used. That water
so,
can be used.
so that water that will be obtained after the activated carbon system that can be used for
Yes,
wash basin
yeah,
also.
yeah. So every system that you use, once it's recycles, it basically gets monitored, and that data needs to be sent. Once that is sent, then and accepted, then you can utilize that water for potable purposes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, welcome.
So just to get this right, because I think we're using activated carbon for a lot of things, I just want to clarify the processes once. When you have your phytoremediation and you have your activated carbon, the water passed can be used for flushing, irrigation, and those kinds of purposes. And if my gray water, filtering my gray water, I can only use it for flushing, right? I cannot use gray water for anything else. I mean, flushing and those kinds of purposes. I can't use it back for something like hand washing, washing hands or any kind of washing purposes. I can only filter rainwater and use it that way, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't follow your question.
Sorry, I
Uh,
was on mute. Yes.
Sorry, should I just, I'll just sketch it
I,
out as with arrows and send it to you
sure.
on chat.
Okay. Yeah.
Kimaya, shall we go through the biodigestive system now? Or?
Yes, we can. What is the time? It's 12. We still have 20 minutes. We can go
Yeah,
through that.
okay. So I'll share the screen.
Sure. So, regarding the biogas plant or a biodigester or an anaerobic digester, uh, this is basically you need to understand that what all can go as waste in the biodigester, and from the biodigester, what can come in terms of the output, whether it's fire or electricity, and then the methane is used as a fuel. So this basically diagram talks about that how the organic matter in terms of plant and animal products or even human feces are broken down by the bacteria in an oxygen-free environment, a process called anaerobic digestion that happens, and the biogas system uses anaerobic digestion to recycle the organic matter. So this is just a diagram which talks about that how from a particular waste matter you can use it as a resource and then use it for gas. The remotest of the biodigester that you see is in rural India, where the toilet tanks, okay, there are biodigesters fit. So there are gas provision which is done using the biodigester. Next. Now these biodigesters actually come in different sizes. Okay, there are market sizing for it, and it tells you the volumes of it. So you need to understand how much is the collection of volume that you have, and accordingly you put install a biodigester for it.
Shall I?
Yeah. Now this is a biodigester wherein on the left hand side you actually see a pit which is created manually. It's a masonry pit, which wherein the organic matter is being dumped. Then there is a dome-like structure. Now the dome is a peculiar form. That is because you actually digest the matter and all the gases come up, and that's why the dome format with a funnel kind of a system from where the gas can be tapped. Whatever sludge or the waste matter or byproduct is in the form of the fecal matter or the solid sludge which is accumulated below is being taken care of and go for composting, and from there it's being used. The water seal around that chamber on the top is very important because of the odor. Otherwise all the odor is going to come out. Also you need to understand that the dome, okay, and it's underground because of the pressure content of it. So if you really understand that the biogas contains basically the biogas actually contains roughly 50 to 70% methane, then it is 30 to 40% carbon dioxide, and then there are traces of other things as well which are there. Okay.
I just switched the slide now.
Yep. Now, what we have got is we have got you three different kinds of biodigesters which are available. It's there since 1976, I think, that's been processed. But all the elements are the same, but they are just deeper inside, rooted. Now, because there is a tremendous pressure, what happens is that you need to also understand in terms of how those uh, uh, the pressure differences occur, and that's why you don't want the things to explode or something like that, and that's why it's underground, because within below a certain earth's crust there is a certain temperature which is getting maintained, which helps the biodigesters to settle it much more faster. Also methane is very combustive gas, right? So you have to be very careful in tapping that as well at the same time. This is another one which talks about the Janta model. This has been used a lot. Again, it's an inbuilt, totally masonry structure from where you put in the organic matter, and from there you have the biogas digester. And then on the right hand side that you see, you can also tap methane right from the top. Now, always understand that the gas is being tapped right from the top so that you only get the gas and you don't get any other particles mixed with it. Yeah, and the gas is going to always rise up. This is the rural model, which is Deshbandhu model, which is being used. Okay, it has a dome-like structure. Now, if you see, the base is a concrete base. Okay, and again, so three components are very important. Where from where you feed in the resource, then the resource get digested in that anaerobic digester. All the gas starts accumulating at the okay, and then there is an outlet chamber which is there on the extreme right. And then there are these gas valves and all, so that the gas doesn't leak and things like that. Okay. The next slide is basically about the comparisons of the three. So I think we would give you time to just go through the comparisons. So if there are any questions, you can then ask us, maybe in today's class or the next class or something like that. Now regarding the sizing, okay. Now what happens is um, the septic tank on the anaerobic settler tank, I gave you the sizing, which is 80%. Sorry, just wait, I'll give them the sizing and then we will go ahead. The second is basically your reeds bed. Okay. Now reeds bed ka kaise hota hai? It's 0.1 square meter per 100 metric volume, which is, m cube. And then you do the sizing. So generally, in, a project like yours, which is one building, you can go for like a 10-meter by a meter stretch. Okay, and depending on the amount of screening, you can go for more. The oxidation pond is something which in being trickling the water. So if you see the Vikas community project that we showed, that Swati explained, it had a clear cut tank. Swati, can you go to that slide? That is just a classic example of how you can maintain. So you already have an underground anaerobic settler tank. Okay. Then you have these wedge-shaped reed beds which are being designed, and the water goes from one reed beds to the other. Now here the architect has not gone for a very clean, straight, linear bed, but there are parts. The bed is in parts. Okay, and then is this huge oxidation pond which also acts like a lagoon system. So can you see the pipe that comes from the reed beds into the oxidation pond? So there is a lotus. You can treat that pond as an ecological pond. So we actually chose this example to show you that as architects, how you can design the system. The workability is something that you need to take care of, but you can definitely aesthetically design it, which enhances the whole, the campus aesthetics. And it becomes a part of the functional landscape then. So oxidation pond is again 0.3 metric square. It's quite complicated. So depending on your sizing, we'll be in a position to tell you. The problem is that these systems we generally introduce in the higher years at around 40 or in the fifth year. So because by that time you are in a position to understand the complexity that it involves as well. Right now, I've given you a which is there. Okay. Any questions till now that you have? Hello. So you can take the sizing from these diagrams as well, and accordingly for yours, you can then create. Now, if you understand the sizing of this is equivalent to 25 families, which are there.
There's one question in the chat box which says, does the oxidation pond have any odor near it?
No, it doesn't have it. It won't have it. The moment the odor starts coming in, you need to realize that there is maintenance that's lined up for your oxidation pond and the reed beds. Okay, any more questions?
Yeah, I just sent a diagram of the question I was asking earlier with the. Yeah, I just tried to simplify it a bit.
Okay, I need to check that. Just hold a second. Not loaded for me. One sec.
Should I screen share it?
Shravan, see, the activated carbon is a chemical process. Okay. It is generally used in the waste recycling or where there is a contamination of the groundwater that is there. Not necessarily all your rainwater has to go through that treatment. So the kind of diagram that you have shared, it appears to be that activated carbon is the solution for it. You also have to
Huh.
understand it's not a sustainable solution,
Oh,
right? It's a
okay.
chemical process, no, eventually.
So any kind of filtration is like even like a PVC pipes with the membrane. What's that membrane called?
The filter, you mean?
Yeah, PVC pipes with the filtration membrane. Would that also work?
It is a chemical process. With activated carbon filters, it's a chemical process because
Okay.
eventually carbon is an element, it's a chemical that you're adding, right?
Right. Right.
So, okay, whatever which is non-chemical or sustainable is basically to do with the um, sustainable solutions.
All right. So I have to. I. It's better to figure out non-chemical means of filtering everything rather than
Yes,
adding
right now I think
carbon
the
to my
kind of system
water.
that you have, you can basically uh, right now the kind of system that you have, you will get it. You would require a sustainable solution. You don't require an activated carbon for it.
I think rainwater I can find a more sustainable filtration option, and I'll rework out the
Yeah,
black water
yeah,
and rainwater
yes, you do
filtration.
that.
Rainwater filtration also should be
Yes.
simpler, so it's just rainwater that black water they need to take care of then.
Okay, yes.
Prakriti is just requested to repeat the calculation for the reed bed once.
Okay, the read bed calculation I told you for a stretch, the kind of capacities that you're designing, you can go for 10 meters by 1 meter stretch of plantation.
Shall we go through the rest of the presentation then, Kimaya, now? Guys, any other questions?
Yes, we can
Sorry,
go
Maya,
through.
could you also repeat the calculation for the oxidation pond once?
Oxidation bond ones. What is the oxidation bond? It's a diagram, right? I told you to take the reference. What I'll do is actually, I am outside in a hospital right now. Sorry, but I have forgotten to get my diary, which has the this. What I'll do is I'll put it in the chat box. Those calculations. I'll put it before afternoon, as soon as I reach home.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry for the inconvenience. Guys, just wait. It's loading for me. Internet. Okay, now this is another diagram just to show you. This is a portable biogas digester. It's basically used in 4 by 4 square meter area. Okay, it can be mounted in the terrace as well. So you can easily use it for your rural, farmhouses and things like that. So the kind of program that you're looking at, you don't have to go for these major ones. What you could do is you can actually go for these kinds of biodigesters, which are easily available, easily maintainable as well. So this is another one. It talks about the small scale biogas. Okay. Then there is an incineration one, and then there are comparison. Now biogas is much better. So it actually, if you look at the table on the right hand side, it talks about why biogas digester is a much sustainable matter. So Shravan, this is the answer that thing that why people are not so keen in using the activated carbon. Okay.
Okay, I should probably
Yeah,
look
and
into a
then it gives you
bioreactor
the
instead of
yes.
yeah, instead of using the water, I can take it into a bioreactor. Is what you're saying, right?
Exactly. Now, this is 2
So
kgs
I do
per
have
day. So,
yeah.
you need to also understand. Now, this is the capacity. So, if you want to design a biogas digester, you should put one of these into your system. So, if you see on the right hand side, it has that vent pipe. Okay. And on from the top, it's taking the gas. So, the whole masonry big ones that we saw earlier, this is just a packed, smaller version of it. Fair enough?
Yeah, I'll look into something like this because I do have a
Okay.
kitchen on site.
Yeah. So, we are done with this one. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So from my end, I have to now send you the measurements, right? In terms of the calculations, which I'll do it before afternoon. As soon as I reach home, I'll do that. Anything else you'll want from me and Swati?
Sorry. I no. I think we're good. Any other questions? If there are, then we will.
Yeah. What you guys could do, it's quite a heavy subject as well. Run through the slides, Shanti say. Jot down your questions and we can take it in the coming class first. We'll start with the questions and also get your ideas questions for the next class. Before we start with a new topic, we'll just finish those. Is that clear? What do you
I'll
think,
put up
Swati?
a
Let's do that.
PDF
No?
of the presentation in the chat box.
Yes,
No.
yes, yes, yes. It will be helpful for them.
Okay.
Okay, and then along with that PDF, I'll